Hello and welcome to the December 17th edition of the Gold Goats and Guns Short News. My name is Tom Luongo. We've got a lot to talk about. Today I want to talk about outsourced censorship and what could possibly be the fall of Patreon. Now, when Facebook and Twitter and the rest of them began the process of censoring conservative and libertarian content back during the publicly back during the 2016 election, Andrew Torba created a gap, right? Today, we've seen that move forward. Even last year, they Patreon axed Laura Southern's account with very little fanfare. But the fallout now from the banning of Sargon of Akkad is reaching particularly interesting proportions, and almost epic proportions. The biggest one now is the now report that Sam Harris is quitting the platform completely, giving his patrons 30 days to migrate over to a different system, and that's that. And whatever he loses, and he's willing to eat the revenue loss, but because this to him is completely intolerable. I've got to give Sam a lot of credit on this. I don't happen to agree with him about a great many things, but I love what I'm seeing in terms of the response from people who understand how serious this is. There's no bigger issue in the world than the totalitarian control over speech. Period. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter whether you like what the person has to say. Doesn't matter whether you hate what the person has to say. As a matter of fact, if you hate what the person has to say, you have to defend it twice as hard. Was the ACLU's argument for years. My wife is listening to Tucker Carlson's book, Ship of Fools, and I listened with great intent his chapter on this very issue. And Carlson is as outraged by what's happening as anybody else is. It's all happening here. And not only Sam Harris, but last night, yesterday, Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin did a quick 10-minute live stream. I'll get a link to that video in the description down below, discussing their plans, because they're absolutely not going to take this lying down. They will quit Patreon when they have a solution in place, which is, in their minds, permanent, or at least sustainable. And I talked about this the other day, and I think that the answer here is a crypto payment underlayer. And I've been contacted by some other people in the crypto world wanting to talk to me about this stuff. I will keep you informed as to what comes of it, if anything. I just find all of this really fascinating. This is the kind of thing that when Facebook was outed earlier in the year with the Cambridge Analytica data breach, it was obvious to me then. I wrote about it then. I wrote about it for my subscribers in the Gold Goats and Guns newsletter. Everything saying this would be the end of Facebook. Because when you breach a public trust in the free marketplace, you lose your customers and they never come back. Okay, to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, how quickly people turn on you. Okay, they could be your customer for years. My wife and I used to do the local farmers market. We used to sell goat milk and yogurt and cheese and stuff over at the local farmers market. And if I sold somebody a bad egg, this happens. There's nothing you can do about it. I sold them a batch of yogurt that they didn't particularly like because the product wasn't consistent day to day, and they were unhappy with it. They didn't come back. They're under no compunction to continue spending money with you. And if you abuse your customers, if you treat them like chattel, they will abandon you at the first opportunity. And so Twitter has been getting away with this, getting away with what they do, because the intellectual heavyweights on conservative Twitter refuse to move off the platform. People like me have no influence. Okay? But people like Donald Trump and James Woods and the rest of them, they need to bolt. They need to take their people with them. They need to get off of Facebook. They need to stop using those platforms. They need to look at the sunk costs of that time and take all those people and move them somewhere else. What they need to do. It's the same thing. And what Sam Harris has done or is in the process of doing, what Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin, and others are doing, is exactly what needs to be done. People need to lead against this. They need to shoulder that burden. I'm happy to do the same thing. My particular circumstances are very, very tenuous. Right? I barely have enough bandwidth to even upload most of these videos. And so I have to make the very difficult choice as to what platform should I even spend an hour's worth of bandwidth every day uploading one of these to the marketplace because I live rural on a crappy internet connection. Very difficult for me. So moving to BitChute, for example, is really not a good idea. As much as, I don't expect to be on YouTube for long. I expect to be on YouTube just long enough to get big enough for them to get rid of me. Well, I expect it, but it is what it is. If in the process I can find customers along the way, I can find like-minded people, build a business, I will do so. But understand that this is far beyond just this little thing, okay? Understand that the censorship itself is not just intolerable. It is also designed. It's been designed. This is just another step in the process of what government always does when something is inconvenient, which is to outsource that which they want to do, which is unconstitutional, and outsource that process to the private sector, who can then hide behind nebulous terms of service, bad interpretations of contract law, a corrupt judiciary, in the whole 9 yards. We have a reasonable expectation of being able to make a living. The government cannot take that away from us. But they can if they can put pressure on a company like Patreon or Twitter to harm your business. Because they're not doing it directly. Twitter is. Twitter gets to be the bad guy. Also feeds right into the whole idea of that these companies are out of control and all these tech companies are out of control and they need to be regulated more, which is ultimately George Soros and Tom Steyer's plan in the first place. Go read their manifestos from earlier in the decade. It's pretty clear. My good friends Halsey English and Dustin Gold have been doing great work on this. You can find their stuff on Halsey's channel. But the banks have been turned into the banks and the payment services have been turned into the outsourcers and the enforcers of political speech. This is not, so when I talk about crypto here, I'm not talking at all about tax evasion or anything else. I'm happy to pay my freaking income taxes, even though I think they're theft. Why? Because I want to be able to build a business and be able to continue to do this. If I have to pay my freaking taxes while I complain about the philosophical reasons for paying my taxes, well, that's part of my business model. Duh. The banks, through Know Your Customer, anti-money laundering laws, the Magnitsky Act, FATCA, the war on cash, all of this stuff, all of this is done so that they can more easily not only track down people who are tax evaders, Martin Armstrong likes to point out, but also to be able to track down who's the dissident and how can we unperson them. Because they're not allowed to do it directly. Constitution forbids this. So in my mind, it's not hard to believe that Patreon was coerced to remove Sargon of Akkad. Their behavior has been really weird. Makes no sense. Gab, I understand. They hate Gab with an absolute passion. Gab has stuck it in the eye to all the tech companies from the beginning. Andrew Torba, CEO of Gab, has done nothing but go out on Periscope every day for the last 3 years and talk about how evil these people in Silicon Valley are. Come on, at the end of the day, he's spitting in the eye of the people who made him, in fact, right? He made himself, right? Just think about it. I have no problem understanding the impetus about stopping Gab. No problem. Sargon of Akkad? He was made an example of to see if they can take him down. What was going to be the reaction? Well, the reaction is going to be bad. So I really fundamentally believe that even if Patreon did this with malicious intent, which is very possible, I'm just trying to be generous here. Because even my most generous read of this, what if Patreon was coerced? Who were they coerced by? They can't say anything. As I said the other day, very, very important to understand that you make Patreon pay. Sam Harris is doing his part, Jordan Peterson and Dave Rubin are doing their part. I still think that taking them to third-party arbitration. I said the other day, sue them in court, but you can't do that. You already signed your rights away when you became a content creator that you go to jams. You do it that way as one of my one of my viewers on the last video explained, it'll cost them money. The way that works, the onus is on Patreon to pay all the fees, the arbitration fees. Well worth it for a content creator like Sargon to hire a lawyer and start the process and just bleed them. Just don't kid yourself. It's not like Patreon's a huge business or anything. It's not like it's $1 billion a year. But ultimately, I really do believe that what has to happen here is that there has to be a payment layer that is inviolate, that is unimpeachable. You, as the supporter of me, the content creator, that transaction has to be inviolate. We need to be able to figure out how to do so. Who cares if they ban the wallet, some wallet software from the Google Play Store or this, that, or anything else? We'll figure it out. We're not dumb. People will figure out a way. People always figure out ways. Because at the end of the day, there are always solutions to problems. Technology will all of these problems can be solved with technology. And if Google and Apple decide to continue to clamp down on being able to use crypto or being able to use alternative payment systems or whatever because they don't want competition to it, well, I got news for you. That will create a new marketplace for another device that runs off the back of the mobile web. TCP/IP is kind of inviolate. I'll empower somebody to start building devices that are purpose-built for the purpose of just paying for things in crypto. Come on, it's not that tough. So, got to get around the banks, though. The important part here is to get around the banks. It means building a bank, fine. Something has to be done. It starts with an inviolate crypto layer, and then it's built on top of that. Because if we don't do this, we don't start thinking in these terms, if we don't take responsibility for every aspect of our business model, we as content creators will be destroyed. It starts here and it starts now. In the Gold, Goats, and Guns short news for Monday, December 17th, 2018. If you like what you heard today, please give a like and subscribe down below. That would be fantastic. Also, click the bell for notifications. I'll be speaking about this very issue tonight on my live stream at 8 o'clock here on YouTube and Periscope. You can also follow my work over at goldgoatsandguns.com, and you can also follow me on Twitter at TFL1728. And for now, you can support my work over at Patreon at patreon.com/goldgoatsandguns. You guys have a great afternoon. You take care. Be well. Keep your stick on the ice.